All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Cowboys Steelers game, which also had an entertaining finish. Wasn't as entertaining as a game as what we just talked about with the Ravens and the Bengals, but, had its moments. So let's get into it. But actually, this game didn't start on time. There was about an hour and a half delay because of bad weather, because of lightning in the area. And this game did not start until about, I think, like 9:45 East Coast East Coast time. Like it was interesting, and I listen. I stayed up to watch the entire game, and again had its moments. And let's kind of just get into it, how it all played out. So the Cowboys got the ball to start the game, and Cavante Turpin had a good return, so the Cowboys had decent field position, and then the Cowboys got into field goal range and into Brandon Arbery's field goal range, and he hit a 55-yard field goal to make it 3-0. The Steelers then they answered on their first drive. Chris Boswell, who's also had a good year, 41-yard field goal to make it 3-3. Then both teams exchanged punts. The Cowboys then were driving, and they got down to the 11, and Dak Prescott got sacked, lost the ball. T.J.Watt and Herbig got the split sack there. It was recovered by Herbig, and the Steelers took over there. However, they punted. Then the Cowboys went 8 plays, 51 yards down the field, got down to the Steelers' 15-yard line, and Aubrey kicked a 33-yard field goal to make it 6-3. Steelers punted, and then this was interesting. So they got down to the Steelers' 15-yard line on their next drive, and there was some miscommunication with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, and NBC showed them on the sideline. CeeDee Lamb was saying something to Dak. But yeah, Dak Prescott threw a pick to Dante Jackson. And it ended up being 6-3 Dallas at the half. And then the Steelers, they opened up. Nice drive, 6 plays, 72 yards down the field. Justin Fields connected with Connor Hayward for a 16-yard touchdown, so that made it 10-6. And then the Cowboys, they were driving. And the Steelers, they do a good job at this. They blocked Aubrey's field goal. So they took over, but they ended up punting. And then the Cowboys, they responded, put together a nice drive, 16 plays, 90 yards, 8.5 minutes of time possession down the field. And Dak Prescott connected with Rico Dowdle, who had a good game, a 22-yard touchdown. That made it 13-10. Then we went to the fourth quarter. Steelers punted. Dak threw another interception. This was deep to Jalen Tolbert. It was picked off by Joey Porter Jr. And the Steelers put together a drive after that. 12 plays, 63 yards, and Fields connected with Pat Freiermuth. And it was a little shuffle pass from 6 yards out to make it 17-13. But I was like, yep, there's still too much time left on the clock. And there was because the Cowboys went 15 plays, 70 yards down the field, and they got it down to the Steelers' 4-yard line. And so they tried to. So they didn't get it on first and goal. Then second and goal, Landon Roberts makes a nice play because Dowdle was trying to go over the pile, and Landon Roberts jumped into him, and the ball came out, and they pushed the Cowboys back to the 4 again, because before that Dak scrambled for 3 yards, and they were reviewing it to see if he scored, but he didn't. So yeah, knocks the ball out, but the Cowboys retained possession. Then there was an incompletion to Tolbert, and then Dak went right back to him on 4th and goal, and they scored a touchdown from 4 yards out. And the Steelers tried to block the extra point, but they could not. They got penalized a couple times, and if they were penalized again, then it would have been an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So Cowboys ended up hitting the extra point. Steelers tried to do a bunch of laterals, and it just they ended up not getting the win there. They dropped to 3-2, and the Cowboys improved to 3-2 on the season. Dak Prescott, 29 of 42, 352 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Rico Dowdle, like I said, had a good game. 20 carries for 87 yards. He also had 2 receptions for 27 yards and a touchdown. And Jalen Tolbert was actually their leading receiver. 7 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. He stepped up. He actually got hurt in this game late, but was still able to make that touchdown, still get that touchdown. Jacob Ferguson, 6 receptions for 70 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 5 for 62. Like I said, Kevontae Turpin, 4 for 50 yards in this game. Dak had 3 turnovers, and they still won the game. And the Cowboys defense had 3 sacks. Justin Fields on a couple of plays was getting knocked around. And he only went 15 to 26. Actually, he got taken out of the game at one point. I forgot to mention that. So he got taken out of the game. Kyle Allen was put in, and, he got the Steelers in good position. He had 1 pass that was completed for 19 yards. But, Fields went 15 to 27, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Had 27 rushing yards in this game. Najee Harris had 42. They were missing Cordero Patterson and Jalen Warren in this game, so, they definitely missed them. The Steelers was trying to get that running game going. Najee Harris was actually their leading receiver, 2 receptions for 35 yards. Van Jefferson had 3 for 26. George Pickens, 3 for 26. Connor Hayward, 2 for 23. Pat Fryermuth, 3 for 22. Not impressive throwing the ball through the air, but it was a slugfest, this game. So you would like to see. I mean, last week the Steelers did open up the passing game, but here I thought they'd be able to move the ball against the Cowboys defense, but they really weren't, especially because the Cowboys were missing Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. But it didn't matter. But T.J.Watt, once again, a one-man wrecking crew, a forced fumble, 1.5 sacks in this game. But it was not enough, and they definitely do miss Alex Highsmith. They really do miss Alex Highsmith. Because now, when you take him out, and now they could just focus their attention on T.J. Watt. But having said that, T.J. Watt still made his fair share of plays because he's an absolute stud. But I mean, for the Cowboys, I mean, it's a good win. I mean, am I overly impressed? Not necessarily, because again, Dak, turned the ball over. Rico Dowdle made plays, so that's at least something encouraging going forward. I know some people are kind of mocking Mike McCarthy because, of what he said recently about the running back room and why Dalvin Cook hasn't been elevated. He's like, guys really haven't gotten an opportunity when talking about Dowdle and Zeke. Well, I mean, Dowdle, at least showed that, he could do some damage. But I think you need somebody that complements him, and I don't think Zeke is that option. So I think maybe you see if you could bring Dalvin Cook in and, see if he can complement Dowdle. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But again, I have him in one of my fantasy leagues and one of my dynasty leagues. So I'm kind of hoping that he gets elevated just so, we can see what he does. But Dowdle at least, had a good game. And, you got other contributions from some of these other receivers that are going to have to step up because Brandon Cooks is on IR, and Michael Gallup was that third option, but he's not there anymore. So, you got guys like Turpin and Jalen Tolbert, who they believe in, that stepped up and made big plays. So that's at least something encouraging going forward for the Cowboys, that you got other contributions besides CeeDee Lamb. Now, it doesn't seem like Dak and CeeDee are on the same page, and that could be because, CeeDee Lamb wanted his new contract and missed some time. So you could point to that, but they're going to get it going. And it's not like they haven't done anything this year. I mean, CeeDee Lamb has scored touchdowns this year. Didn't have one in this game, but, scored that touchdown against the Giants last week. Had that touchdown against the Ravens. So CeeDee Lamb and Dak, I'm not worried about that connection. That's the one thing you can rely upon. But last night that was not the case. There was other guys stepping up. So, Yeah, so, I mean, again, I wasn't overly impressed. I mean, I guess also the fact that they have a ton of injuries on defense and they were still able to get this win, I guess you could point to that as a positive as well. Well, it's definitely a positive, but again, I wasn't like overly impressed by it. There's still some things they gotta clean up and they gotta get healthy. And then as for the Steelers, yeah, the defense struggled once again. Not as much as last week against the Colts, but they still gave up some big plays, and again, T.J.Watt was a one-man wrecking crew, but you need some other guys to step up, to get after the quarterback. That's really the thing, is to get after Dak, and they just really couldn't do it at times. But they got 3 turnovers off of the Cowboys, off of Dak, and you would think if you win the turnover battle that you would win the game, but that was not the case here. The offense, I mean, there are some limitations with the offense. I mean, you saw them open it up against the Colts, so you thought, okay, maybe it's going to continue here, especially, the Cowboys are a defense that has struggled, but that didn't happen. Justin Fields didn't throw for 200 yards. George Pickens is frustrated. I'm seeing that. They got to get these pass catchers more involved. They got to get this running game going. I mean, they're dealing with injuries up front on the offensive line, which is not good. And then also you got guys injured in the backfield. So hopefully you get those, some of those guys back. But that's a team that I think needs to make a trade for another receiver. Because, outside of George Pickens, Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin, who has made plays, they need to get somebody else in there. Roman Wilson, who they drafted out of Michigan, he was still a healthy scratch. So, we'll see, eventually when he makes his debut, maybe he can help. But the Steelers have to trade for another receiver. Right now, they're still in a good spot, but now the Ravens and them are tied for first place in the division. So, and they got the Raiders next week, who are coming off of a loss to the Broncos. And that's a home game for the Raiders. But, the Steelers won there last year. So, we'll see what happens in that game. And then for the Cowboys, I believe, let's see, who are they playing next week? The Cowboys are taking on the Lions. That is a big game. That is a big game next week. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, Cowboys get the best of the Steelers, 20-17. Let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to click on the Super Chat button in the chat to help create a Super Chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And then also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will get into talking about the 49ers falling to the Cardinals, a division rival, 24-23. And I'll talk about some concerns I have with the Niners going forward. So we'll talk about that when we come back. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.